Yo, what's going on, fellas? Thank you for clicking on the video. Listen, before you start skipping around trying to find different settings, I wanted to explain that this is going to be a complete settings guide. So I'm going to go over exponential, linear, controller binds, the sensitivity you should be using for each of those, the best claw, non-claw, and paddle settings. So you're going to be totally covered on everything, and I'm going to break each one down to try to explain it to you guys. And I would really appreciate it if you guys watch the full video through. It helps out the channel a lot. But let's waste no more time. Let's just get right on into it. Alright boys, so let's just go ahead and hop right on into our settings. Go into your game settings and we're going to quickly go through a few of these important settings here. So the first one being sprint by default. Yes, you absolutely want sprint by default on because it frees up a bind on your down left stick. Your down left stick is a very important bind that we need to use, and I'll explain that later. So definitely keep sprint by default on. And I keep the rest of these off, but it is personal preference. Like auto open doors, I keep them off because sometimes it'll open a door you don't want to whenever you're in a house in game, but other people like to have it on because if you do mess up an edit and you only edit a door and you're trying to go through, it'll automatically open that door and you won't lose momentum. So it is personal preference, but I keep mine off. So hold to swap pickup is a very important one. If you and your opponent are flying down on top of a building and you guys are trying to race to get the gun first, your opponent will always get it first because hold to swap pickup has a little bit of a delay on it while picking up weapons. So you definitely need to make sure this is off. Just sort your inventory manually. And the rest of this I have off, but this one, preferred item slots, is very important. This one you really need to take advantage of. This one you can choose which individual gun goes into which individual slot. This is the way I have mine set up. You can pause the video and copy mine if you'd like. And moving on to sort consumables to the right, this is kind of canceled out by preferred item slots. If you take all of your consumables and put them on a certain slot in your inventory, then auto sort consumables to the right is kind of irrelevant. Reset building choice, it's not really a big deal since we have instant turbo builds, so you can have it on. I keep mine on just so my wall's always out, but either way it doesn't matter. This is one of the best quality of life settings that they have ever added to this game. The pre-edit option is when you can pre-edit certain structures to do certain things, but a lot of times it'd get really annoying because if you edit your wall into a half wall, that's all you will build, will be a half wall. So turning this on disables that feature. It makes it a lot easier to edit freely without messing up or anything like that. And then turbo building, this is an absolute must. If you don't have this on, you're gonna have to individually tap each build to place it. Of course, just keep turbo building on. Confirm on release is a very controversial one. Most really good players use confirm on release, and I highly recommend you have it on even if you do confirm each edit. And the reason why you should is because it's almost a safety net, so if you don't confirm an edit, you will because you lifted off your trigger. So just go ahead and mess around with it, but I definitely recommend it on. So the next one we're moving on to is Nvidia highlights. Definitely keep this off because any replays that are recording in the background, especially on console, will give you lower FPS and higher input delay. So to do the opposite of that, just make sure you have this off. It's pretty unnecessary. Tap to search / interact is a very good quality of life setting. I would highly recommend you turn this on. All you have to do is tap your interact button and it will open up a chest automatically for you. You don't have to press and hold. And then all of these record replays, turn these off unless you have to use one. This takes up a little bit of power from your PC, so I recommend turning it off just for higher FPS. So these are my HUD settings here, and these aren't very important. These are kind of personal preference. So I keep my HUD at 75%, and the only two I have off are these two down here. If you play keyboard and mouse, these are my mouse settings on 800 dpi. This is just what I use. All right boys, so now we're going to go on to the controller settings. First off, you definitely want to make sure you have these two on. And edit hold time, if you're still holding a button to edit one of your builds, we're going to talk about that later, so just make sure you stick around. And then slide hold time, this is definitely personal preference, but I don't see myself ever messing up or accidentally sliding when it's at this setting right here. So 0.109, that's what I have mine on. And then vibration, make sure you keep vibration off. So first of all, it does give you a little bit of input delay. Secondly, it messes with your aim a little bit as well. So overall, I just say go ahead and keep it off. And now we're going to talk about sensitivity. So if you've never messed with advanced options, you're only going to see this right here. When you turn advanced options on, these two settings still have a play in what sensitivity you are using. So if these two are at 1, it makes your sensitivity a little bit slower. And if they're at 10, it makes your sensitivity faster. So you have to mess around with it, and it's not a placebo. It definitely changes things. You just have to know what works for you. But if you want a smoother building experience, I would go and recommend to turn it down maybe 1 or 2. But if you want to play a little bit faster and have really flicky crosshair placement, go ahead and turn it up to about 7 or 8. So we'll get into build and edit mode sensitivity in just a second. I want to talk about look or horizontal speed. So I play on a fairly low sensitivity, and I recommend you do as well. And the reason why is because the new guns in chapter 3 don't have a whole lot of aim assist. Sometimes the aim assist even turns off at times. So using a lower sensitivity to combat that definitely plays a big part in whether you're going to be able to get the kill or not. I usually say don't go any lower than 38 and keep it anywhere below 60. This is where the mid-range, right about here, this is where you want to stick around. I keep mine on the lower side at 42 because it stays really consistent for me, and I use a higher build and edit mode sensitivity. Now, depending on what sensitivity you're using here, if it's anywhere from 40 to 50-ish, I recommend starting out about 1.8 to 2.0. Change it to whatever feels good for you for multiple days. So if you do change your sensitivity, stay on it for a couple days because one day it could feel really nice nice, and the other day it could feel way too slow or way too fast. So try to keep your sensitivity very consistent. So boosts kind of do what exponential does for a controller. What it is whenever you press your joystick up just a little, it is slower than if you press your joystick up when it's really fast. So on linear, it is a straight linear curve. So no matter how much you push your stick further and further, it won't speed up or slow down without any boosts on. But with boosts, it starts slower and then it ramps up the speed of how fast your sensitivity is further you move your joystick outwards. And turning boost ramp time also does play a part in that. So if you are going to use any type of boosts, I recommend trying about 5 to 10% because that's what I used to play on. I actually used to use these on console. I see a lot of console players use boosts, and I'm not sure if it's because of the aim assist is a little stronger so you can move your crosshair a little bit more. Try out 5% if you really want to give them a shot, and maybe 0.10 seconds of the ramp time. But other than that, I would just keep them off if you don't like them. And boost ramp time and instant boost while building only matter whenever you have boosts on, so just keep that in mind. Now ADS look horizontal speed, I recommend you have this from anywhere from maybe 8% to maybe 16-17%. I don't recommend going any lower or higher than that because that is what most of all of the really good pro players use, because AR shots at range are very hard to hit. So having a lower ADS helps a lot with that. But like I said before, make sure you mess around with it a little and try and see what fits best for you. Now ADS turning boost ramp time, I do have at 0.9% because those long range AR shots are a little bit easier to hit with the boost on just a little bit. So, and you can go ahead and try this out as well, but it definitely helps for those long range shots. Now look dampening time, I used to use it a long time ago, but it is super hard to get used to, and for linear I don't recommend it. But if you are on exponential, you can give it a shot. Some pro players do use it, but I don't like to have it on, so you can mess around with it if you'd like, but I recommend just go ahead and keep it off. Now the look input curve, this is one of the most controversial topics about controller Fortnite settings. I have a lot of experience on linear and I have a lot of experience on exponential, but overall I do recommend linear. Now you might have heard me say before, try exponential, and so I do like to go and test different settings all the time and try out different things and keep it fresh. Well, exponential is one of those things that I tried recently. I have a video, it's right here in the top right corner if you do want to take a look at it after this one. I tried out exponential, and the aim assist on exponential is by far stronger than linear. It's way easier to hit pump shots, way easier to hit SMG shots. I think it's very valuable if you are a comp player to have exponential over linear, but trying to have good mechanics while on exponential takes a long time to learn, and it's not as quick or as snappy as linear is. But I do regularly say linear is just a little bit better than exponential in my personal opinion. Now aim assist strength, always keep this at 100. So now let's move on to dead zone. Now if you take a look over here to the right, the outside bubble right here is my dead zone, and the yellow part is my joystick, which is my natural dead zone of my controller. Now this is what your dead zone probably looks like if your controller moves by itself. That's because your dead zone is just a little bit too high, and some people just say go ahead and put it all the way at the very lowest as possible, it helps you with aim, well no, I don't recommend it at all. But either way, I found 8 to 9% being the absolute sweet spot for me. And enable foot controller, just go ahead and turn it off. Now if you want to see my audio settings, this is what they are really quickly. There's that, and like I said earlier, sometimes I play keyboard, and these are my binds if you want to see those. Now let's talk about controller binds. Controller binds differ from which controller grip that you use, and if you don't have paddles, your bind should be way different than mine. So I'm going to give you my personal opinion on which the best binds are for each controller grip. Now let's start off on non-claw. So if you don't play claw or you don't have any paddles, I recommend down left stick being your edit, down right stick being your jump or your build mode. And if you use a PS4 controller, I recommend your touchpad being either your build mode or your edit, either or, and you can swap that with your down left stick. But if you use an Xbox for non-claw, try to find a really comfortable build mode bind. I have seen some people put their build mode on their LB, which then they take their LB and they put it on their B button, just so you don't have to take your finger off your joystick to go and press B to press your build mode. You can just click it on your bumper. So if you're willing to learn that change, I recommend that for non-claw. Now if you use 4 paddles, I recommend just taking all of your face buttons and putting them on the back, and all those binds are kind of personal preference, but I'll tell you mine. My top left paddle is reload, my top right paddle is switch mode, my bottom left paddle is jump, and my bottom right paddle is toggle pickaxe, and then down left stick is my edit button. So I do everything in game without ever taking my finger off the stick. Now for claw binds, I do not play claw, and I never have played claws, so I do recommend you do your own research. The only thing I would say is using Y is probably the easiest button to use to press claw, so either have that as your edit or your build mode, and make sure you're using that down left stick for an important bind as well. But there are tons of different claw binds that you can copy and use. And one last thing, make sure you're on the generic controller platform. What it does is it makes your gameplay just a little bit smoother, and it also reduces a little bit of input delay. And these are my build controls. Just make sure you come to your trap picker / place / interact. Make sure whenever you are changing your binds that you do set a bind for this, because you'll be in the middle of game and you'll forget that you accidentally removed that bind if you do change something. But like I said, all of this is personal preference, so just go ahead and mess around with stuff if you need to. Now edit controls. There there are two really important settings in here. The first being reset. RB is my reset, and I think it is the absolute best reset button out there. I don't think there's any better reset. There's tons of really good controller players that use RB as a reset. Go ahead and throw it on. I think that is the best you can use. And then just find a very comfortable confirm button. Mine is LT, but I could use one of my paddles if I want to. But LT does seem very, very comfortable for me, so I'm gonna go ahead and stick with that. And then these are my ability controls. And this last one is the old dead zone setting, but I just recommend coming down here and using it in this one because you can see the percentage here. And since you did watch this far into the video, go ahead and click the video in the top right. If you watch this and you enjoy this video, you should enjoy this one as well. Boys, I do seriously appreciate every single one of you that did watch to the very end of the video. Drop a comment down below of the word goated. I really want to see who the real ones are. Yo boys, that's all I got for you today, and much love. Yo, peace.